The Savage Hour. This week's special guest, Andy Thomas. He's a close friend and entrepreneur, co-inventor of Kettle Grip. He's a Marine Corps Cobra pilot extraordinaire. All of this brought to you by Semper Savage Salad Dressing and Marinade. It's homemade salad dressing in a bottle, and you are gonna love it. Hey everybody, welcome to the Savage Hour. Glad to have everyone back. Tonight we have a very, very special guest. I've been looking forward to this for, well, Andy called me out of the blue about, 7 days ago. And I convinced him to come on the show, and I've been looking forward to it ever since. He is a close friend. He's an entrepreneur. He's the co-inventor of the Kettle Grip. He is Cobra pilot extraordinaire. And been friends for years. I've known him forever. We've had some awesome adventures together, flying Cobras and messing around in the squadron. But Andy Thomas, welcome. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, John. It's an honor, man. It's we chat not enough. I know we call each other every, a couple times a year just to catch up, and it might have been less than a year or so. It might have been more. And yeah. I can't remember why I decided to call. Where did I see you? Oh, did I see you on a video for Eric Strong's retirement?
Oh,
That's where I saw you. Yeah.
Really?
And I said, hey, I got to call John.
Okay,
and then,
cool.
Then we started chatting, and man, you started telling me about Semper Savage, and I'm just, it's awesome, man. From one guy who's starting a small business to another guy who's, doing the small business thing. It's good to see, and it's cool, man. And I know I was just kind of talking your ear off before because I'm just curious to see how you're doing and how it's going, man. So hopefully we get into more of that today.
Yeah, we will, and I'm sure we can exchange some ideas and stuff. And I'll tell you, I've met a lot of other veteran entrepreneurs, as I'm sure you have, in varying levels of success. And man, what a great community, everybody wants to help each other out, at least in my experience so far. Really supportive. But hey, so I've known you since you came to the squadron, whenever that was. I'm guessing that was 99 or 2000, because I was coming off a float.
Yeah.
But I was coming off a float. We had just gone to Kosovo and done some other things over in the Med. And I come back, and there was this group of young guys, and I was still at the other squadron. And honestly, Andy, I don't remember if you were among that initial group, but it was Bronk and Fluffer and Chad Moore. Yeah, Two-Bit. Yeah, exactly. All those guys, and I know you all checked in real close together. But so I'm still at the composite squadron. I start flying with these guys, and they're brand new. And Smitty, we can't forget Smitty. And I started flying with these guys, and I was like, man, I like these guys a lot. I really like these guys. And there's a few reasons over the years, because I've remained really close with all of you guys. But there was a few reasons, but amongst them, and probably the one that I think about the most, that probably made me absolutely fall in love with you more than when I say you, I mean this group, was the complete lack of restraint when it came to doing silly things and just willing to take whatever the turd man suggested as the possibility of a good prank or a good practical joke. You guys were all in, and I was just like, oh my God, I love these are my peeps. But that's the one thing that sticks out, in addition to absolutely every one of you guys being a fantastic pilot from the day you walked in the squadron. Just really good head on your shoulders. Really worked hard. And that's just me receiving a phone call. It's not a big deal. What was I saying? Anyway, yeah, all you guys just really worked really hard and were ultimately super successful in the Marine Corps by any measure. And everybody did different things, but just super successful. So, but I want to give you an opportunity. That's enough of me yapping. I want to give you an opportunity to introduce everybody who does not know you to yourself, what your background is, and just kind of bring us up to date.
Man, all right, where to start? Was born in Pensacola, Pensacola, Florida, where you went to flight school, where I went to flight school. Did you go to Corpus after that, or did you stay in Pensacola?
No, I stayed in Pensacola. I got you back now too. I can see you.
So my dad had just finished flight school, so was born into a Navy family. Although my parents did divorce pretty early on. I think I really actually don't even know. I was probably 2, maybe 3 when they got divorced. So moved around a bunch with the mom and the sister, just looking for different job opportunities. And I say we'll talk about entrepreneurship, but just we moved around a bunch and didn't, a single mom raising 2 kids in the 70s on a social worker salary. We weren't exactly the rich kids on the block.
Right.
And that's I think kind of instilled a lot of work ethic and drive, and I'll share a story here in a little bit where that how I think got a itch to become an entrepreneur. But man, still had a good family, man, and went to high school and ended up in upstate New York in a small town called Ellenville. Had a great time there, graduated there, and then went to Clemson, South Carolina, and studied construction science and management. And man, I was going to build houses. I got my contractor license when I was probably 20, and was working for a builder, and then started just doing some side houses for myself. And had a guy that was crazy enough to let me build a house for him when I was 20 years old, and it turned out well, thank goodness. But yeah, it was wild. And but I met my best friend from college, a guy by the name of James Bowman, and I was as I was a cheerleader in college, which was a great time. He was a cheerleader, so we meet one day, and he's just telling me he's like, I'm going into the Marine Corps, I'm going to be a pilot. And I was just thinking, man, that sounds awesome. And I was like, I thought you had to be an ROTC, or I didn't know what I knew nothing about it. Because I hadn't talked to my dad in years. Since then, we've reconnected and actually very tight. But during that time, I really didn't chat with my dad, so I didn't know anything about aviation after that. But this guy says he's going to be a Marine pilot. It's going to fly, Harriers or F-18s or Cobras. And I was like, dude, I want to do that. And I was like, so we went and took the ASVAB test and failed it. And then we're like, okay, what is port and starboard and all these nautical terms? We knew nothing about it. Yeah. So then we go steal a book from the Clemson library and just start reading and anything we can on aviation and nautical stuff. And then we did work out a lot in PT and ran a lot. And so then we took the test, passed it, and then man, I got lucky enough to get an air contract. And he did not. His eyes ended up being bad, so he went in as an intel officer and did really well there, and went on. Currently works for the NSA and is doing really well there. But so I went into the Marine Corps in '97, and then long time through flight school because of all the backlogs, and then made it to selected Cobras, and then and I wanted Cobras so bad. I didn't care if it was East Coast, West Coast, on the moon. Man, I just wanted to fly Cobras. That was right. That was just the ultimate for me. And while I was at Clemson, as were you in 773 for a while? Didn't you do the reserve thing there?
Yeah, I did it. Well, that's kind of a funny story, and I don't want to sidetrack you, but yeah, that's when we came off after that float, the mega float for like 11 months.
Yeah,
and we came home from that. I went chick ride out. Was the
general ride out.
General ride out now, which that's a whole nother funny story too that you can kind of talk about, where I could about the likelihood of him becoming a general, not because he's of any sort of capability, but just everything he did throughout his whole career. He went kicking and screaming. It seems like he never wanted to do any of this stuff, and now here he is. He's a brigadier general. But Chick Rideout was the monitor at the time, and I called him up from the boat on the POTS line, and I said, "Hey, dude," because we were good friends. Said, "Hey, dude, what do you got for me?" And he said, "Man, you really need a break," because I'd been deployed a lot, and we're going to send you to 773. So I go to 773. I checked in with 126 days of leave on the books, which is a lot for the non-military folks out there. And I believe it was 2 weeks after I checked in, frickin' Cooter was there as well. Cooter was working in ops with me, gave me a call as I was getting ready to lay down a credit card to buy some flight time on a multi-engine thing, and goes, hey dude, squadron's activated. We're going to Afghanistan. Boss needs you to come in tomorrow morning. I was on leave. And well, who would think up a phone call like that? You know? And I'm like, dude, you were taking something right out of my playbook. You know, if you think I'm going to fall for this, you are friggin' high. I like hung up on him twice. I'm like, stop it. I'm in the middle of something. Bam. And sure enough, squadron was activated. And the squadron spent, I think it was 14 months in Afghanistan. Yeah. But yes, I did do the 773.
They were in Atlanta then, right? Out of Dobbins?
Yeah, they were in Atlanta. Right when I left, they were just beginning the planning for the move to Moody?
Warner Robins.
Yeah. Warner Robins. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So when I was at Clemson, the ambassador and another, I don't know if it was Phantom or someone, you know, a couple of Cobra guys, they landed a Cobra and a Huey at Clemson. And when I saw that, man, that was it. Like all I wanted to do was fly Cobras after I saw that. We used to go down as college students. We met those guys. Oh, it was Murtha. Is that right? Murtha?
It was Mudbone. John
Murtha. That's right. Yeah. So he said, hey, if you want to come down and fly the sim, you can. And as college kids, we're like, okay. So Monday morning, sure enough, we show up, and the guy, Phil, who was the sim tech at the time. So we would go there for like a full day and just sit in that sim all day. And then you guys, this is before you got there, but you know, the reservists or the activity guys, like, who are these kids in the sim? You know, we loved it, man. So we could hover that thing. It was great. Well, when I saw those Cobras, that's when I wanted Cobras. Well, I graduated from Clemson, went to flight school, and then got Cobras because that's what I wanted. I got lucky, and I wanted West Coast Cobras, and it's a funny side story. I had the best grades in my class until Will Fenwick, if you're watching. He slid into my class because he went med down. And I remember he comes up to me, he goes, hey, what's your grades? And I told him I was around 52.1 NSS. And he starts laughing. He's like, yeah, I got a 52.2. And I was like, no. So he took the West Coast Cobra slot. And I still wanted Cobras. Like I said, I didn't care. So I took East Coast Cobra. So I showed up to the squadron in December of 2000 is when I got there. So Russ, Ribka, and Pete and Aaron had gotten there maybe 5 or 6 months before. Russ probably 9 months before. And I got there maybe a couple months before Smitty, and about the same time as Zig. Yeah. And about 6 to 9 months before Pismuka. Anyway, so I get to the squadron, but we had a great cadre, but you know, we were the lieutenants, the LPA, right? The Lieutenants Protection Agency. And you were the captain, you know, coming off the float, and we all looked up to those guys because we're like, man, these guys have done it. You know, these guys went on a float. Because back then, you know, there was no combat going on. So, you know, for everyone to kind of, you know, measure, you know, who was the biggest stud in the room, the only thing you could go by was who has done a deployment, who's been to the boat, you know, and then just, you know, flying off the boat with you at night. I just remember hearing those boat stories and how scary it is doing it at night until I did it with you a few times. And that was scary, man. But so I got to the squadron in December of 2000, and you were an instructor then because you had, you know, been on a deployment. You had, I don't know, at least 2 years in the squadron, probably 3 years in the squadron before I got there.
I've been there for almost 4 years.
Oh wow. Okay. So you were a solid mid-grade captain by then, at least. You know, we're still lieutenants. And you know, so we're training, and you know, no one had been to war yet. And we looked up to, you know, a bunch of you, not all of you guys, and there's a handful, and boy, there was a handful that we couldn't we didn't care for too much. But you know, we knew it was cool. And you said, you know, you liked us right away, and we all liked you right away. But that's because and I wish I had a way, and maybe next time if we do another podcast, I'll have pictures up, because I went through some of my pictures and I saw one that I entitled Hellcap. You remember that at all?
No.
I'll send you a picture, but it's a picture that you and I, or at least I was in your flight, and we had done a Hellfire shoot. I don't know, BT 9 or 11 or something, out on one of the ranges, and you're given the debrief, and you're wearing the Hellfire cover cap, that yellow protective cap. You're wearing that, and it's got the red, remove before flight thing, and you're given a serious debrief, but you're wearing that. Oh yeah. Oh, I've got the picture to prove where you're awesome. Writing all the tactics on the board, but you're wearing that cap. And we're like, it was funny because like you knew what you were talking about, and so you could back it up in that way. And you were just a cool guy, man. Like you didn't take yourself too serious when the situation dictated, and then there was times where the serious Captain Curry came out when he needed to, and but yeah, man. So that's then I did
that's funny,
6 or 7 years in the squadrons, back and forth between 167, 269. So we were in HMLA, Helicopter Marine Light Attack Squadron 269.
Yeah.
You deployed with who did you deploy with? Not 263. The first one you did.
First one was 263, and second one was with 263.
Oh, okay, okay. So you done
both on the 2-4 from you. Matter of fact. Yeah.
Okay, both times 2-4. Okay.
Yeah, both times 2-4.
Then we all, me and you, and that. There's a picture.
The whole crew.
When I watch your Semper Savage, some of your videos, I see the picture of. I was like, hey, there I am, and there's Smitty, and there's Russ and Fluffer.
Pete Reitmeyer, Tang was on there. Sparky was on there. Of course, Jinx, Bronk, friggin' Fluffer. I'm probably leaving somebody out, but
K9,
2-bit K9. Man, it was a friggin' nuts crew. It was
a good crew, man. That was a good crew, man. It was that was fun. We all, I would say for the most part, supported each other, and that was a good place to be. So we did that deployment. So. I came back from that, immediately went over to 167, only had a few months at home, went to 167, and then deployed with them. And that was actually it was a good deployment. It was a little weird being with 167, but man, they treated us really well. And and I learned a lot. And then I love 167 now, because at the end of that deployment, they sent me to WTI on their ticket, knowing that I was going to go back to 269. So they knew they were not going to get anything out of me as a WTI, but still thought enough of me to send me to WTI. So like, man, I've always appreciated that. And it was good people, good deployment, man. Plenty of good captains and majors there. You had
always
Wally
great dudes down there. We love to give each other shit, but man, great.
Then came back to 269, did another deployment with 269. By that time, I was right? I was the senior instructor, and just like you said, you had it's an evolution in the squadron. You're the new guy, you're the middle guy, then you're the senior. You go on to be the instructor, and it was some good. It was those great times, mentoring and flying real combat missions like we did, and then being able to do it not as a junior guy, but as a my second deployment as a mid-range guy, and then this last deployment as kind of the senior guy, one of the senior guys. It was great. And then 2006, I stayed in the reserves, went down to flight school, flew T-34s for 6 years. And then that's when I got out and started doing contract flying overseas back. So after I got off active duty, a couple months later, I'm in Afghanistan flying Russian Mi-17s. And I did that for 8 years back in Iraq and Afghanistan, doing the contract flying, that was a whole another eye-opening experience, something totally different, something, it was awesome. It was good times, bad times, just like we had in the Marine Corps. And then, somewhere in there, I started trying to do some entrepreneur stuff. I started around the time GoPro came out, I kept thinking, man, and I took, if you remember, I took a lot of pictures. That's why I got a lot of dirt on John.
Yeah,
Curtis.
you do.
So anyone that,
you do.
Anyone that look,
it's great though, because I have none. I was telling my wife the other day, I was like, I've got 0 pictures from when I was in the Marine Corps, and then like you and Sledge and some of the other guys. Well, I got tons of stuff, and they'll start sending, you guys start sending me stuff. And I'm like, oh, wow. And she's like, well, why are you never smiling these? I'm like, I was in charge of all these freaking knuckleheads. I didn't have time to mess with any posing or doing anything cool. I was too busy trying to make things happen. But anyway, yeah, I'm glad that somebody took some pictures and whatnot.
You need dirt on John Curry. I got some funny pictures. And then,
oh, well.
So I started trying to do this camera mount thing. And that was like my first true dabble in entrepreneurship. When I was a kid, back when like I said, in the 70s and 80s and stuff, and early 90s, not having a whole lot of money, I remember just being like, man, how can I make money? I used to knock on neighbors' doors with like a rake and some, garbage bags. And if I knew they had a lawnmower, I'd say, hey, can I mow your lawn? Or what can I do around your house? And I remember just getting, they'd be like, all right, you can mow the lawn. I'm like, can I use your mower? And they're like, oh, sure. And they're like, hey, well, what do you charge? And I was like, I don't charge anything. Just after I do the job, you just pay me what you think it was worth. And, in the early 80s, I'd mow a lawn and get $5, and it was amazing. And I remember one time I was like, hey, can I do something around your house? I said, well, I can clean your gutters. It looks like there's leaves in them. I remember I cleaned gutters all day, and a guy gave me a $20 bill. I couldn't believe it. Like, it was, back then, it was like, I just couldn't believe I got I worked all day, I got a $20 bill. So like from there, I was hooked, man. I was like, you can make money. If you're willing to get out there and do the grind, you can make money, So during the Marine Corps, there wasn't a lot of opportunity for that. But once I got into the reserves and was just flying, T-34 in the reserves and overseas doing contract work and had some time on my hands, sitting around waiting for flights, I designed a camera mount called the Adrenaline mount. Yeah, you can still buy this. You can be the fourth person to ever buy one on eBay. So I built this camera mount, and I spent way too much money, but I did get the education on how to do injection molds and how to get engineering work done and how to start a patent and stuff like that. Not great at it, but I did get my feet wet on it, spent way too much money. And then I got busy, and then I ended up with, 1,000 of these things sitting in my garage until my wife is finally like looking through. So what is this? I'm like, it's Adrenaline mount. Haven't you heard of it? And so she packaged up a few, and like about 6 months ago, she's like, hey, I sold an Adrenaline mount. I'm like, oh, great. That's the first one ever. So that's $8. Wow. I'm only $999,992 in the hole. So, but that was a good educational process. So then, I always liked designing things, and this Adrenaline mount didn't go anywhere because GoPro, I was like, hey man, I'm going to put my camera, attach it to a helmet. It's going to sell like hotcakes. Yeah. And I go through, the process took me too long, and I kind of spread myself too thin, and I had like 15 different mounts designed. I should have focused it down, and then I built 15 different molds and had these things built. And like I said, it was a learning process, sure. And then lost steam, and it was just too much. And I started, working my civilian job more, and then they just sat in the garage. But I always wanted to do something. And I had so then I did the contract flying for 8 years, and then a buddy of mine hit me up and said, hey man, there's a corporate job I think you'd be perfect for if you want to try it for. And the director of aviation at the time, a guy by the name of Bill Faulkner, walks on water, in my opinion, that guy's great, was a Marine 46 guy. So I go interview, and it's just like me and you, man. It's two Marines chatting. He was a Vietnam 46 guy, but it didn't matter. We spoke the same language, and he hired me on the spot. And so did that, the corporate flying for a while, and that had a lot more time. And so about 4 years ago, one of my best friends from high school, a guy by the name of Dan Smith, who had done businesses before with his brother and was successful and living out in San Diego and had opened ice cream shops and had done a bunch of things, but they were closing down that business. He goes, hey, let's go into business together. Let's just do something. And I was 100% on board. Let's do something. So we're like, all right, well, what are we going to do? And it didn't matter. Anything was on the table. We would just brainstorm back and forth for months. And he would, send an idea to me. What do you think about this? And I'm like, it's junk. And then I'd send him something. And he's like, this is crap. And we go back and forth for a few months. So he sends me on a napkin, and he explains to me, he's like, hey, this thing is, it's a plastic handle. It holds a dumbbell. And like, as soon as he said it, I stopped. I love it. And he's like, man, are you messing with me? And I'm like, no, man, I love this thing. He's like, you serious? I'm like, yeah, give me a few days. And I had a little bit of a background in computer design work, just kind of self-taught using Google SketchUp, free plug. I don't get paid for it by them, but man, it's a free program, download it. And I got pretty good at doing 3D modeling with it. And I still use that program. If I had to design something, I still use it today.
Right.
And then once I get to a certain point, then I turn it over to engineers, and then they can take it and put it into, SolidWorks or AutoCAD or whatever modeling program they use. So did the design work on it. And then it went through a few design changes. He drew something out on a napkin, and I remember, oh no, I can make it better. So I made all these design changes, and then I kept going through these iterations. And he's like, I don't like it. I think you're making it too complicated. And then about 3 weeks into it, I sent him a design, and I'm like, I got it. I have done this. And I send him the design work, and he's like, that's great. Then he sends me back a picture of the napkin, and it's the same thing, right? So it took me a little bit to come back, but got all of the design work done. So we decided, hey, let's open up a business. And we call it the Kettle Grip is the product. And quick little about that. It's just a plastic handle that clamps around a dumbbell, turns a dumbbell into a kettlebell, weighs less than a pound, real easy to travel with, accommodates not every weight, but if the weight handle is between 1 and 1.5 inches in diameter and at least 4.5 inches wide in the handle space, that it'll clamp around it, and then you can swing it like use a dumbbell like a kettlebell. And it's not we get it's not a perfect replacement for kettlebell for the true kettlebell guys, but if you're traveling or you just want to expand your home gym, it's a pretty good solution. You don't have to increase your footprint. You just buy one piece of hardware, and it's been a hit. It's doing well. So we went through and we opened up, did all the channels that I'm sure you've done too. We opened up LLCs, and we went through just all the processes that it takes to open up a business, which as I know it's just it's one of probably the big hurdles that people have $1 million ideas all the time, and regularly, now that friends have seen that Dan and I have done a couple projects now that have done okay, and so they'll come with me, I got $1 million idea, and I'm like, yeah, let's hear it, and I'll sign an non-disclosure agreement. They'll tell me, and I'm like, yeah, it's a good idea. All right, I'm gonna make $1 million. I'm like, hey, you can, but before you just put it on the market, there's so many hundreds of steps that you've got to do. And to me, that's, if you can just grit it out, that's the kind of the barrier to getting your $1 million idea, is just the amount of time and dedication that it takes. And when people are working real jobs, and they got kids, man, that's it. A lot of $1 million ideas just kind of go to waste because there's you just don't have the manpower to it.
There's so much, and you just told a great story. I mean, I don't think I've asked you but like one question this whole time, and you just encompassed so much that a lot of people like to hear your stories, but you kind of hit on along the way that, hey, there's more to this. There's a lot of steps in order to get from your $1 million idea that you got in the basement to actually creating something that is even marketable. So let me back up real quick, because I found this fascinating. If I understood what you said properly, you guys, when you were deciding to go into business together, you hadn't decided on an industry, a product, a market. You could have made industrial strength, peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. If that was your idea, you might have done that, but you just happened upon the kettlebell.
Yeah, it was, we, and we've opened up a couple businesses that have failed since then. For instance, we, in the city of San Diego, and this is here, anyone else you want to take it, go ahead. There's we opened up a business for stormwater pollution prevention because a friend of us said, hey, in San Diego, there's a real need for this business. So we're like, all right, let's try it. So we opened up a stormwater pollution prevention inspection company because we thought we had a company that we were in talks with, and we thought that we were going to get their big contract. And if we did, it probably would have worked out. And the short of it is that a lot of red tape, we just couldn't get the contract with that company, and Kettle Grip started taking off. But we were willing to do anything legally for the most part, just kidding, to do well. And right. I'm glad it's something in the something that you can actually physically make. I mean, if it was a software or an app or something, we would have been on board with that too. But I enjoy designing. I really do. Sitting down on my computer doing the design work and just being like, hey, how can we make this? And then how can we make it better? And then, during the production, I'm in California right now at our production facility where we're cranking out kettle grips right now. We do them, a run once a month or so. We'll make, 5 or 10,000 of these things. And so I'm out here, normally I live in Georgia, but so yeah, we would do whatever business we could and, thought we would. And, this one started gaining traction and we made our first 1,000 and we're like, we didn't know if we'd sell 0 or 10 or however many we'd sell. And man, so when we sold, I remember our first time on Amazon, we started selling a couple and we're like, dude, we sold 4 today. And this is the greatest thing, like 4 people bought our product, and then I remember we still kind of joke. We're like, hey, when we sell 20 a day, that is crack the champagne. We have made it. And so after a few, a month or 2 months, we sold, probably like you with, the salad dressing and marinade, like, hey man, we're people actually like this thing that we made up out of the blue. And it's just a truly cool thing. That one of the coolest things ever is I go somewhere and see a kettle grip and I'm like, dude, someone actually went out and bought, I made Dan and I made that. And now, you got one. It's like, it's the greatest thing. And you'll experience that too, man. You're going to go over to some friend's house that, they don't know that you are the salad dressing and marinade king, and you're going to see Semper Savage on there and they're going to be like, this is delicious. And you'll be like, I know, I made it. Of course.
Yeah, that's funny. I mean, what a great story. And I'm super glad you guys have been successful. Of course, like you said, you've tried before and failed, and I think there's so much that, man, I mean, I think back to my time in the squadron. So this is an interesting thing that I think a lot of folks have issues with in the Marine Corps, but it's an allegory for life. As I came in the Marine Corps, I'd always been, like super in shape, always a fast runner, always kind of things. But at every stage, like when I went to TBS, I ran like a 398 PFT or something. I had like an 1830 run. Middle of the pack.
I'm going to submit that it was a 298 PFT.
Whatever, what I say. I can
398 because that would have been pretty high.
You know what I meant. You know what I meant, like 298, right there at the edge. But the point being that the pond just got a lot bigger, right? And the competition, if you want to call it competition, the pool of dudes you're hanging with are much more capable, right, than what I was used to back in my hometown. And if then when you go to the squadron, eventually you get to the squadron, you think, oh, I am somebody, I'm a Cobra pilot. And you get beat down for like 4 years, but working through that and overcoming that, because at least in my case, significant adversity. I mean, no shit, me and Flash and friggin' Sketch and, Sonny and I don't know, name a few more guys, Fonzie, we got our asses ripped on a daily basis. It was friggin' shotgun blast to the face every day, it seemed like. And man, it would get you down, but you're like, nope, I've got this goal. I've got this end state in mind. I'm going to keep pressing. I'm not going to give up. And eventually you get there and the payoff is fantastic, right? And I've sort of found that as I started a company, that there's a lot of adversity at the beginning and there's a lot of things that don't go right. I'm on my 3rd website. That represents a significant cash investment. And it would be really, really easy to just say, you know what? I'm out. I'm just going to go back to Iraq, make some bucks, and retire that way. But I find it to be fun. The payoff is hopefully coming as we build. But
John, I got a question for you. Were you tech savvy when you were in the Marine Corps?
No. Well, it depends on what period of time you're talking to. So you're going to laugh about this. Do you remember when Falcon View came out? Or is that even like before your time or after your time or before your time? Falcon View. Do you remember that program? Anyway, it was a navigation program and a flight planning program and shit. So I was actually the duty expert at 269 for about 2 months on Falcon View. But no, I was actually a complete frigging technological idiot.
Well, we remember, and we used to make fun of you all the time.
Of course.
You have to remind me on what that piece of junk car you had. What was that thing?
Oh, it was a Plymouth Acclaim that belonged to my grandmother. It was an awesome car.
Years.
It was an awesome car.
Hey, when you did this, I'm like, oh man, that brought back some memories. So that was back when, before PowerPoint, you know, when you had to give a brief, you got out the one gun, the projector, and you did clamshells. All right, here's the objective area. And then a piece of translucent paper over the top with where you're going to be. And then you like, oh my gosh. Yeah, that was, so, you know, when you're, you know, asked me to come on the podcast and you're sending me Zoom links and Facebook, and I'm like, who is this guy, man? This guy is, now you always, obviously you knew your stuff about the Cobra, and you know, you could tell me everything about a Hellfire missile seeker head spinning at 4,200 RPM, and I'm like, Captain Curry, I don't care, you know, and you know, all the different seeker head anyway. But so now, but this is a different animal, you know, like getting up to the times and getting websites and getting a, you know, a shopping cart on your website, and getting a merchant services and who to use and what credit card fees are they going to take. And, you know, I mean, that's a lot of the, like you know, we were saying, that's kind of the, some of the barriers to entry, but,
well, you know, and one of the questions I was going to ask you,
you know,
it's funny that you bring that up, but one of the questions I was going to ask you is, you know, like your experiences in the Marine Corps and stuff, how did that prepare you for entrepreneurship, or did it? But yeah, it's interesting, like myself, not the computer guy, right? Yeah, I knew everything there was to know about an SA7, about an SA, you know, 18, you know, all the different threat systems, and you know, I knew everything there was to know about that stuff. But I could barely send an email, you know, because that wasn't the critical thing to my job. And I was in that generation where my first like 3 years in the squadron, I didn't have email. I did not have email like my first 3 years in the squadron.
Didn't you type this?
Oh no, I can type like crazy.
You could? Okay.
No, I can type like crazy. That's not the issue. I wasn't real computer savvy, but having the vision and then being understanding what you're good at and what you're not good at, knowing where you needed to hire expertise or at least seek expertise. I think that was one of the skill sets that I gained out of the Marine Corps, was understanding where my strengths are, where my, you know, weaknesses are, and knowing that that's a weakness, and don't try to act like it's not a weakness, and go find the Andy Thomas and say, hey dude, you got a cell phone. How do you do this thing? You know, and find the young guy or the other guy who can cover that gap for you. That's really something that I learned in the Marine Corps to do, or got comfortable doing in the Marine Corps, that I've had to do as I became an entrepreneur. Otherwise, our whole thing would be an absolute shit show. Our website would look like, I don't know what, you know, it would be.
I love it. I ordered my first round of salad dressing and marinade the other day. Unfortunately, it got to the house the day before I was leaving to come out here. So I gave it to my wife and said, hey, we will be using this. And she said, I can't wait. So when I get back, I got a couple steaks earmarked, and then I'm looking forward to it.
It's going to be awesome. Hey, well, we got to pause here. We got to shout out to some dudes that are friggin' watching us. All right. You ready for some names? You ready for some friggin' blast back to the past? Rodney Devaney.
Oh, he's watching right now?
Hell yeah, he's watching. He says, hearing these guys' voices again brings back a lot of great memories. Rod, every time I see your crazy ass, it brings back a lot of good memories. Barry Edwards, who I just talked to the other day, he and I keep up a little bit, but Barry Edwards is on, right?
Of course, man. Yeah.
Debbie Cook's on. Matthew Kaufman. That's my wife, Stacy, who says she's excited to try the kettlebell or the kettle grip. And Ermoni Tobias is watching with us. Rod Devaney, Barry Edwards. There were some other guys in here. Hang on. Let's get up to James Spriggs, Chris Browning.
Bear.
Yeah, Bear is on. Tim.
That's Colonel Browning to you.
It is Colonel Browning. Yeah, whatever, dude. Boot. Tim Wernemont.
Tiny
Wernemont. We hope you're healing up and doing well, brother. Rod said earlier in the day, Babs, the man, the myth, the legend. My good buddy Travis.
You were broken. Who's
Rod Devaney said that.
That's a funny guy, man.
And then funny guy.
I'm going to share a story about him in a second.
Okay, hang on to that thought. Travis Partington was on, and man, a great American. You got to check this guy out. Oscar Mike Radio. He's a former Marine Hawk guy. Did you even know we had Hawks there, young guy? I'm giving you shit. But yeah, Travis is an old Hawk guy. Friggin' great American. Randy Lee Myers, Ed Morris. Anyway, Wade Bieberdorf's a good buddy of mine. He's got a coffee company. That shit rocks. And Brian Barker. Do you remember Brian Barker?
Of course.
Brian Barker was on our float.
He was with us in Kosovo.
Yes. He is Delta pilot now.
Yeah. No, he did Atlas and then went to Delta. The guy, it's awesome, man.
He's a Delta pilot now. And I'll tell you what.
Hey, Barker, I have got some pictures of you too. So, and I think you know what I'm talking about.
Hey, so Brian, this is one of the most touching moments I've had in my Marine Corps related career. So I was at headquarters Marine Corps Aviation, working in the H1 program as the graybeard dude, right? And Brian sends me an email and says, "Hey, you probably don't remember me, but would you write me a letter of recommendation because I'm applying for Delta?" I'm like, "Dude, I remember you like freaking,
oh yeah,
my little brother." Absolutely. But it was extremely touching to me that he thought enough of me to reach out to me to ask for a recommendation from me. And I was just like, man, I can't believe you remember me,
just as much as we had a good cadre of pilots that we were friends with, did we not have a group of the young enlisted and senior enlisted that just like allowed us to shine by all the stuff that they did behind the scenes? Like you'd come back and those guys worked their tails off, man. Like I love those guys, man. So when you name, the Barkers and the Devaneys and the Barrys, man, that just makes me smile, man. Those guys are the greatest in my book.
What's Port Latin's Jamie Port Latin or Port Latin? Port. We all call him Port.
Sergeant Port.
Here's another name for you, who is actually a huge Semper Savage fan, is Pinto. You remember Pinto?
Dude, I remember Pinto. I used to whoop his tail.
He was at least a walking comedy show. The dude was one of the most hysterical guys I've ever met. Do you remember when he came in Kosovo, wrapped himself in friggin' toilet paper or something, and came running through the officer's hooch, like screaming at the top of his lungs?
I mean, why wouldn't you?
Well, I know, I'm with you. But when I saw that, I was like, I love this guy. I absolutely love this guy. He wraps himself in toilet paper and runs through the officer's tent, tries to get out the back end, but remember, it was blocked. I don't know if you were actually there. It was blocked, and he had to come back through this gauntlet of like every officer in the squadron.
Is Pinto watching right now?
No, he's not. He's not.
Okay. Yeah,
I just had to bring him up because he is one of the guys that I friggin' remember him. Just such an amazing dude. And they're all super successful now, by some measure. And the reason I say that is because not everybody is a millionaire. Not everybody wants to be a friggin' millionaire, but everybody, for themselves has been super successful. They got families, they, go hunting and fishing and do great things for their lives.
Do we have time for a 2-minute Rodney Devaney story?
Of course.
And I could tell stories about each one of those guys that I love, but man, there's a few Devaney ones that I will just never forget. But kid when he was a Lance Corporal.
At the time.
And we are doing he might have been a corporal at this point, but either way, he had the balls of a 3-star general. Let me tell you. So we're doing
probably more balls.
We're doing a air show down in Pensacola, and the Blue Angels were there. We went to this a place called Sneakers, I think was the name of it, right? So anyway, the Blue Angels are there, and we're all there in our grubby flight suits, and we had just done, like a warm up for a couple Cobras going by, doing, whatever a little part it was in the air show. I said, hey, you can go to, this place Sneakers afterwards, and there'll be, so we all go, and so Devaney's there, and he's got a bunch of other guys there. So the Russ Ripka's there. I think I was flying with Matt. I don't remember who was. No, not Zig. I was flying with Matt Cannon, and I think it was Chad and Russ. But anyway, we go out there, and so the Blue Angel announcer guy, whatever it is, he's there in his ascot, and he's all fluffed up, and he's gets the microphone. He's ladies and gentlemen, please line up and get your autographs with the Blue Angels before they leave. They need to go get their crew rest. So please line up before they have to go get their crew rest. Puts the mic down, and I kid you not, Lance Corporal Devaney walks over, picks up that mic in front of a couple hundred people. He goes, ladies and gentlemen, the Blue Angels, they may be leaving, but the Marines that are actually defending your country will be here drinking all night. Boom, and throws the mic down. The place erupts. Because like the Marines that are actually defending your country will be here drinking all night. And oh my God, we couldn't believe it. Well, the Blue Angel guy goes over and he's pissed because everyone's like roaring. And I remember Russ makes it a beeline. So this guy's chewing, Devaney's tail, and he doesn't care, like, what are you going to say to him? Right. So, but then Russ comes over, Captain Rip, goes, hey, this is totally unprofessional. We're so sorry about that. We'll take care of this young man. And, he's like, that was freaking awesome. Like, and that's just how those guys were, man. They got the job done. Yeah. And man, they had some style while doing it. So
work hard, play hard, man.
Sure,
man. Those guys were all just amazing Marines, but amazing individuals and a frigging ton of fun. They were nuts, completely nuts. It was great. I loved every minute of it. As a matter of fact, I used to go hang out in their tent because I used to be the flight line officer. So I knew a lot of that. I knew actually most of them, and except for the guys that had showed up relatively, recently. And so I used to go down their tent when we were in Kosovo on at Camp Bondsteel that time when our float went down there. And I used to get down to their tent and hang out in there. And they go, hey, sir, you coming to get like your dose of sanity? Where was I working? I was in tactics. Okay, so I was on future ops.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm just coming down here to get my dose of sanity for a while. So I'd hang out with those dudes down in their tent and shoot the shit with them. But
speaking of being nuts, Barker, wherever you're at, you're watching. That guy definitely was nuts. I've got pictures to prove it as he's taxiing me in a Cobra flight suit, maybe partially on.
Right.
Like hilarious guys, man. Hilarious. But got the job done, man. Trusted him, implicitly. I remember going out, on a shoot, in Iraq, and we had the flight line and the ordy guys, and when we would go train up at BT-11, you go up and shoot, the gun would jam, you get 6 rounds off, and then it would jam. And I remember that I got into a situation in Iraq where we're getting broadsided by a 12.7 millimeter machine gun on the back of a technical truck. And I just had no time. I just finally, ducked out and was like, dude, this is it, man. We're getting peppered right now. And I remember just turning up and rolling in and just turning that gun to arm and just being like, thinking just, man, I hope this gun works. And that's like, if this gun doesn't work, that's it, man. And and thank God we had, all the ordies and the flight line guys, and that gun worked, man. And it worked good. So I just remember rolling in and coming back and like really hugging those guys, Sergeant Story and all those guys and the flight line guys, and being like, dude, if you didn't have this aircraft where it needed to be, for sure I wouldn't be here right now.
Yeah.
So that's when I look back, and you mentioned those names, man. I just, these guys walk on water in my book.
There are some guys at seven. So first of all, just all of them across the board in the Marine Corps are just super professional. But yeah, those friggin' ordnance dudes, you know, in peacetime, they don't get to, when I say peacetime, I mean at home. When we're, you know, at home back in New River, while we shoot a lot, they don't get to optimize the systems the way they want to. You know, they don't get to really optimize those systems. When they go on the boat, they really obviously try to keep them running perfectly. But as an example, in Afghanistan, I don't know that we ever found out what really happened, but we were down at Koust. There was a fob there that we operated out of down by BCP2. You're familiar with it because you probably operated in that area. At any rate, it was down by BCP2 at the town of Koust. At any rate, there was a little range there that we used to test our weapons on. And the little routine was we'd take off, do a quick spin through the range, just test your gun real quick, make sure your laser symbology worked, you know, all that kind of basic stuff that you can test. And then we'd head out. It didn't cost us any time. And one day we roll in to test weapons. The gun fires, and I was in the back seat, and I'm looking at the impact area, and there's no impacts. And then I see all this freaking sappy going off against this house. And I was like, oh, that's bad. Oops. So did I think about like not going? It was a tick, right? So troops in contact. So did I think about, you know, like landing or something and not going on the mission? Hell no. And so I come up on the radio and I tell base, I'm like, hey, we just shot a house. We'll be back in a little while, but you might want to send some medics and stuff over there. Anyway, those ordnance dudes, as soon as we got back, and we didn't use the gun during the tick, and as soon as we got back, those ordnance dudes went to work on that gun and trying to figure out what had happened and rebore sighted everything. But man, they took it freaking seriously, you know, and they worked. God, those guys worked like half the night trying to make sure that thing was all good to go.
Hey, can I tell a story about you now?
Oh shit! Yes,
not a bad one. In fact, it's one.
You can tell that one. I don't care. Any bad story about me is going to be
bad ones, man.
Story.
They're all funny.
No,
this one was
so.
In fact, when we talked last week, I got a chance to tell your wife this story. I want to retell it to some other peeps that are watching. But so you know, we went through training, and you know, we got our X's in the squadron. There's no war going off, and you know, you'd done a deployment, and that was it, man. But you hadn't been to combat at that time, but you were, you know, one of the senior instructors.
Yeah.
And so we find ourselves on the boat on that long deployment, and you know, we didn't get off the boat except for a quick turn through Kosovo. We spent a couple weeks there, and then we sat in the Gulf, you know, the Persian Gulf for a long time. But you know, I had no combat experience. You had no combat. We didn't know what it was really
other than
like.
Kosovo, which we never even shot in Kosovo. But
no,
I'll tell you that
thank goodness.
A valuable experience that first time rolling through.
So we're in Iraq, and we you know, we're basing out of, you know, we go off the boat and we land in Jaliba, and man, we take off on our first combat mission. It's a flight of 4, and you're the flight lead, and Matt Cannon and I are in the -3 position. And man, I'll just never forget, you know, like as soon as we take off, and I'm just thinking like, what's this going to be like? And as we go into Iraq, you know, I just very rememberedly when I was 17 years old in 1991, and when the oil fields, they set the Iraqi oil fields on fire, and there was pictures of helicopters flying through the oil fields.
Yeah.
And, you know, it was just these very surreal, like, wow, it's wild looking. And man, that's what we were in. Like, holy crap, man. They're like, these are the oil fields on fire. It was exactly like the pictures I had seen, you know, a decade, you know, a little more than a decade earlier. Like, dude, this is what we're in. Like, you know, we crossed the double berm, and now we're in Iraq. And I'm like, man, what's this going to be? What's this going to be like? And man, within 10 minutes of that flight, we're taking fire. Like, there's some machine gun position dug in, and it's I don't, you know, some 50 cal variant or something. It's, you know, it's peppering, and like, holy shit, you know, we're taking fire. And I don't remember. I think you must have seen it first. Some, like, hey, taking fire, we'll break, let break, right, whatever. We all break. We're all going in different directions. We're like, oh, geez, and so we got 4 aircraft, and I was just a young, naive, and very, immature back then. It was a very late bloomer, but I just remember, being very excited and just being like, holy crap, like, this is it. This is real. Like, we're actually getting shot at right now. And so I'm looking down and, and Matt Cannon's breaking as hard as he can, and I can't even hang on. And I'm down in the, the TSU, and I'm trying to find a target. I'm looking around, and I see it. Like, I see the machine gun position. Like, probably very luckily, I had a high mag. I'm like, what is that? Low mag. I'm like, dude, that's a machine gun. So I tell Matt, and I'm like, Matt, I see the machine gun. And he's like, tell Lee. And so I remember I'm like, 3-1-3. This is 3-3. I was like, I see the machine. And I'm like, super high pitched, and I'm super excited. And I'm like, I see the machine gun. And the flight lead, is very calmly over the radio just says, well, are you going to shoot it? Like, and I just, then in the back of my mind, I got this picture of like, hey, dumbass, I've been training you for the last few years for this moment. Like, this is what I've been training you for. And when the machine gun shoots at you, I want you to shoot back. And so when you just said, are you going to shoot it? I was like, yeah. So we end up, we end up shooting a toe at that machine gun position and getting a hit on it. I just remember, just never forget how calm you were. And I actually still have the tape, that VHS tape of that incident. And
you said it to me. I got it. I got the visual. There's no audio on it. It's just like silent gun tape is what I have.
Thank goodness. Thank goodness, because I was so unprofessional and excited, and I was when I heard the tape, I'm like, okay, we made a decent shot, but man, that was I was not as cool as you were, and so I remember after listening to that, I'm like, I want to sound like he does on the radio. So if I get shot down, that's fine, but I want to sound like John Curry going down, because if they hear this tape of me screaming, like, this is not cool. So after that, I'm like, I want to aspire to be like, are you going to shoot it? Like,
yes, man. So, I wonder if Barry Edwards makes a comment as Turd sips his napalm.
Yeah, man, that was I feel I was very fortunate to get raised by you and Jinx and Chuck Stout and Wally Watkins, and like dudes that were just like, that was it, man. So I was happy. And then I had some other situations that happened in the Marine Corps later when you left the squadron to go on to do your next things, and I'm the senior guy, and I'm like, dude, I remember getting into some very hairy situations, and just being like, man, I look back, I'm like, you can't be like that lieutenant was. I was actually a young captain then, but you can't be like that guy. You got to be like the Turds and the Jinxes and the Wallies, and like you want to survive in this world. And so, yeah, man, you were the guys we looked up to, and I think that's what kind of saved me in the long run, with like dialing in my professionalism and my focus and making sure I knew what I was doing. Then especially when I had the big shoes to fill, like now we're training the younger guys, like, dude, they're looking up to me like I looked up to you. Like, you got to take that seriously. And so that's why I understand why you say in those pictures where you're not smiling as much, because you got the responsibility of the, like what Barry had to the guys in maintenance, where they, like they looked up to him, like, he's the staff sergeant we want to be like, so.
You've got other things on your mind, and you can't, and there is, as of course now, but as you discovered, you were just talking about it, as you walk into that, especially if you're, the WTI type, especially if you're a well-respected WTI, you get a lot of responsibility placed on you, way above your pay grade. At least I certainly did, and a lot of my peers did. I was doing shit I had absolutely no business doing. Sort of, kind of, being a Marine Corps captain.
You did, though. You thought that, but you did.
Well,
you did.
No, I mean, what I mean to say is it's not commensurate with your rank, right? You know, you're walking into rooms and with colonels and lieutenant colonels and you're the authority, and it's a lot of responsibility. And so anyway, yeah, you change from being just the goofy kid who always got to do is survive his his hop with Major Hewlett, who was, who was one of my instructors who I learned a ton from. But holy shit, he used to absolutely hammer me and everybody else. But yeah, you look to, there's guys that provide like the goalposts for you as you're coming up. And for me, one of the biggest ones was Balls Sheeran.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
That was a cool cat right there. I don't know where he is now.
Still is.
I just remember always being like, do they make him any cooler? Like, that dude is like cool. Like, everyone looked up to that cat, and like, he was cool.
Yeah. I had a lot of mentors, Buff Mahaffey, Huey Hewlett, and then there was guys that were closer to me in that I was more friends with, but they were my instructors. Guys like Sideshow Bob Curtis, friggin' Pac Clark. But so that multi-generational thing that goes on in a squadron, where you've got a guy who's just ahead of you by a year or two, and you're friends with him, but he's still your instructor, but he helps really kind of guide you and funnel you into being the dude. Do you want to be a Buff Mahaffey? Do you want to be a Ball Sheeran? Do you want to be, how do you want to do this? And then the guys up top, you can see the results of their years of work, and they come out a certain way. You're a Buff Mahaffey. You're a Ball Sheeran. You're a well, name the other guy, but Huey Hewlett actually is a fantastic example, who I would have looked up to. I feared him so much when he was amazing. Honestly, I absolutely, I feared the guy so much that I learned technically from him, but I didn't learn a lot about being a Marine officer from him. Whereas as he moved on from that role, I learned a lot about being a Marine officer from that guy. At any rate, I totally sort of relived part of my career while you were telling that story, where you're looking to those guys and you're looking to them for guidance. And once you're there, you kind of look left and right, and you've got all this responsibility, and there's nobody to look for. There's nobody to look to. I mean, yeah, you can look at the CO, but the CO might go, I don't know, what do you think? And
that's one of the awesome things about the Marine Corps is they let the captains and the sergeants, like, man, you're in that billet, like, all right, man, you are that guy, man, go. You're the sergeant working that flight line desk. You better make that happen, and you're the captain that's now got the WTI patch on his shoulder. Like, no, man, you can make that happen. They give you a lot of responsibility.
Yeah. Right? Don't hang yourself, or don't fuck it up.
For sure.
Yeah, man, absolutely. And so here's something that I've often commented on with regard to entrepreneurship. People go, oh, you spent your career, your entire adult life in the United States Marine Corps getting told what to do. And how is it you end up being an entrepreneur? And of course, I very quickly correct them. And I'm like, man, Marine Corps is one of the most entrepreneurial, creative.
For sure.
Yeah. Man, from a very early age, you were given a very, very big box of rope, and you can hang yourself. So flight school, there was no mandatory friggin' showing up and going to study hall. You showed up and you either failed or you passed, as an example, flight school. And then same thing through the squadron. You just had to get your shit done. But anyway, I got a couple other comments here. Barry says, we've got balls. 263 moto for Skid Kids. Yeah, that dude was, man. You know what I modeled most after him was his just radio voice, his radio technique. Nobody can actually do it. But I was like, man, no. I said, when I was teaching FAC A, when Balls was still in the squadron, I'd go, okay, look, here's what you got to do. First, you got to be Balls on the radio. Because if you're not Balls on the radio, those freaking jet guys are going to think you're a clown, and they're going to try to walk all over you and tell you how to run the show. And you're like, nope. You freaking run the show. You be Balls squadron on Balls cheering on the net, and they will respect you as long as you're not a freaking clown and what you tell them to do.
I literally remember you giving me that brief, like that you have to talk.
I wasn't kidding. Yeah, I was not kidding. Okay, so you might remember then, how many times did I make you guys practice the mantra that you were going to say on the radio as soon as the Jets checked in? It was like, boom, boom, boom. Oh, yeah. It was going to be time, datum, and a few other things that you were going to rattle off right there. And I made you guys repeat that like 100 times.
For sure you did. And I do remember you harping on, do not embarrass us in front of these Jet guys. Like, when you check in, you will have your stuff together and you will know what to say. And I'm like, I don't know what to say. I'm a flight of 7.
And then after an extensive walkthrough, I don't know if you were in the flight or not, but it would have been another one of those extensive walkthroughs, extensive talk-throughs, probably for days. Mark Sledge, who I love, absolutely love him like a brother, but he was kind of junior to you guys. He was one of the newer guys in the squadron as we went on that float. And he was just trying to survive, and he's just a goofy young kid. Well, we were prepping him up for a FACA. Balls, he was in Balls' cockpit, and I was signing somebody else off in my cockpit. So Balls is -2. I've got this kid trained up, Otis. I've got Otis trained up like, man, I know this kid's going to nail it. I know he's going to nail it. We're going to Golf 10. Jets check in. And of course, it's all super compressed, right? Because it's Golf 10. It's like, everything's super fast. And so I did the initial check-in on the Jets, and the Jets are like, oh, these guys got their shit together. And I passed it. I go, stand by. I'm going to pass you to -2 for control. Pass to -2. Sledge is supposed to pick it up and start with the talkies, right? Silence. And I'm like, check comm. Balls comes up. Got you loud and clear. It was probably a solid 5 minutes of just dead air. I kept coming up and saying, hey, Balls, you guys all got okay? Yep, hey, turd, we're good to go here. No worries. And I'm like, hey, fuck, I'm asking, dude, you're making us look really bad. And probably with a Buff, I don't know who was CEO, but somebody's going to get a phone call. We can't fuck this shit up. And anyway, finally, Balls, I pimped him again. And I'm like, dude, you going to check these fucking guys in or what? And so Sledge must have just been having an epic helmet fire.
I get it.
In the front seat, because Balls comes up and basically says, turd, shut up and leave me alone. I'm like, okay. But after all of that, nevertheless, sometimes you get faced with the reality of this new thing that you're freaking out about, and it all just freaking falls out of your brain. Anyway, funny situation.
Yeah, but, I remember those.
Hey, man, I don't even know how we're doing on time. Hey, we're actually freaking a little over, but I want to hit a couple things because we can go as long as we want. People are going to tune in. We're going to tune out. But I want to ask you one kind of fun question. If you could go back and visit yourself in a time machine and you're 18 years old, what nugget or nuggets of advice would you give yourself?
That's the easy one for me. I was looking back, I was very immature for my age. I don't have it pinpointed, man. I was a late bloomer. I was in that I don't know if I was insecure. I wanted people to either like me or like, hey, look how good I'm doing, and I was just very very immature with like. I look back and I don't mind all the cutting up that we did in the ready room and that kind of stuff. But the advice I would give myself was I did a lot of talking back then, and I did not warrant being able to be the one running my mouth. So my advice is what's the saying? Like, hey man, unless you're the smartest guy in the room, you should be doing not the most talking. And I did the most talking, and I didn't, I should have been. So my advice would have been, hey, do a little less of this and more of listening, and you'll pick up a lot more. And so now I'm pretty in tune with like, like when someone's a lot smarter than me, it's pretty obvious, man. And I just try to do a lot less talking and a lot more listening. And that in later years has served me well. So probably the number one advice from me, 18-year-old me, would be just maybe a little less this, a little more listening,
Yeah, I tell you, first of all, it's great advice for any age, I think. I certainly could have used that. Of course, the key would have been that your 18-year-old self's going to just go, screw you, old man. What do you know?
Right.
I mean, because you're always such an idiot at that age, but I struggle with that very, very same thing, just almost on a daily basis. I try to get myself to shut up and listen to what people are telling you. And I still struggle. I'm 54 years old. I still struggle with it.
Well, yeah, we're all a work in progress, man. But
absolutely,
yeah, that's one of the many pieces of advice.
Andy, and we're just going to have to do another show together because we've got more material than. I mean, we could do like just a pure tell funny stories show.
Oh man, hey, and I'll figure out a way that we can broadcast some of these pictures because I've got some funny ones. Because I used to go everywhere, man. I had my little Sony camera, and man, I took tons of pictures. For back then when, like pictures were a new thing and digital cameras were a new thing before the iPhone came out. So I got dirt on you people. Just keep that in mind.
It would be fun. We ought to just do another one at some point, but let's real quick get back to the kettlebell. Where can people find the kettlebell when they're looking for it?
So we sell a lot on Amazon or our website. The spelling is Kettle Grip, GRYP. Kettle. Yeah, Kettle Grip. And, if you just search Amazon or Google or YouTube for Kettle Grip, it'll pop up. So you can buy on our website or through Amazon. We sell at, some retail stores, Dunham's, Sports, and we sell on the Rogue website. So you can find us there. Yeah. And
awesome.
Take a look on YouTube because there's a lot of people will do independent reviews that we have, nothing with. People just buy the thing and review it, which is great. It helps us, even if they've got some negative feedback. That's just all right. So we got things that we could work on, but we found we've got like 2,500 plus reviews, and we're like 4.5, 4.6 stars. So. And on Amazon and Google, man, like, I don't know that's how I shop now. I'm like, what do other people think about this? So I think we must be doing something right. And we're 100% made in the USA, which we're pretty proud of. We manufacture in California, and we, all the parts are made and assembled 100% in the USA, which has served us during the COVID very well when, other countries and imports from China were shutting down. Like, and we were wide open. So,
you got
in addition, what's that?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were wrapping up with that statement. I just got a quick question from Gary Edwards from Fast Eddie. He says, hey, during the pandemic, have you marketed to outdoor fitness trainers?
We have, not just throughout the pandemic, but that's kind of one of our markets that we sell to is like, we sell a lot to just people that want their home gym. And then we do sell a lot to trainers that do like outdoor boot camps where they, people show up and, you can't have, 50 sets of dumbbells and 50 sets of kettlebells. So, man, you just have a couple kettle grips. They lay out their dumbbells. And now for outdoor boot camps, hey man, to do the kettlebell stuff, you just take the kettle grip, slap it on a dumbbell, and then you can go from there. So yeah, we do. That is one of our that's one of the people that we do focus on.
That makes total sense. Awesome. So hey, thanks to everybody. I want to see if I've missed anyone. Demaretta, Joaquin Demaretta. Hey, I'm thinking I knew a Staff Sergeant Demaretta or a Sergeant Demaretta back at 773 was an Orty, but I don't remember his first name. So if that's you, buddy. Thanks. Anyway, thanks, Joe Quinn, for joining us. And that's it for the questions on live chat. But Andy, we'll go ahead and wrap up. We're just gonna have to do another show, dude.
I'm ready, man. It's always fun chatting with you. We don't do
We'll just have to neck it down, and we're just gonna say we're gonna call it like war stories.
All right.
We're just gonna neck it down right here, right in here. War stories only, or dumb boat stories is probably actually a better topic. Just dumb boat stories. How many hours did you and Babs spend playing? What was that game we used to play? It was a four-wheelers doing cross country.
ATV Fury. If you ain't first, you're last.
Hey, buddy. I'll still challenge you to that one because I don't know. I think I got pretty friggin' good at that. And what was the other? Oh, we do one day need to tell the story of the prank phone call to end all prank phone calls, which I am still very, very proud. I get a little pitter patter in my heart when I think about keeping you on the phone for 45 minutes, thinking I'm some freaking, like Korean engineer from China Lake.
Thank you for that one.
Oh, it was so fun. And you know what? You learned, It was an
John, what did I learn? I didn't learn anything from that except how to do more pranks.
You learned that to never ever trust anybody. Okay, look, I'm going to set the stage from when we do another show and actually tell the story. I had gotten a phone call on the POTS line on the ship from, no kidding, like a guy with a very heavy Asian accent of some sort. He was an engineer from China Lake. I could understand a word he was saying, but we had this really long, involved conversation about a tow shot that he was investigating that Andy and I actually had shot together back at a Kickass. And it was like a year and a half prior or something. It was a long time. I get off the POTS line full of all these weird terms and things that I have no idea what they were. I went back to the room. One of my favorite things to do on the boat was to make prank phone calls. And
as one does when you're in your, on the boat.
Of course.
You're a captain.
I was only going to
make
be
pinning
on major. Yeah, I was pinning on major in like 2 months or something, but prank phone call. Anyway, pick up the phone, dial up Andy, and I start with this crazy thick Asian accent. And probably Andy was staying with me probably for about 5 minutes, just going, "Yeah, turd, I know it's you. Yeah, whatever. I know it's you."
I didn't know it was you. No,
Oh,
I didn't know it was you. I thought it was a prank, but I did not know it was you.
Okay, but at some point you totally bought it hook, line, and sinker. And I ended up keeping you on the phone literally for like 45 minutes.
Yeah, thanks. I can't get that time back.
Oh man, it was great. Well, it entertained the ever-living shit out of me. And then you immediately knocked on my door afterward and completely busted me because I couldn't keep a straight face. But
no, you did.
Anyway.
That's the thing, is I knocked on your door and you did keep a straight face. And I think it wasn't until.
Yeah. I turned to pick up my book because I was going to crack up in your face. And I decided that I was going to turn to my desk and pick up my notebook and hopefully get my composure back. But you caught me. You caught the break in my face. Anyway, but hey, dude, let's wrap it up there, and we'll come back to just a freaking epic storytelling session at some point.
Looking forward to it.
All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and sign off with you, Andy. Thank you so much for joining us. All of our old friends and squadron mates and other folks that joined us. Matt Taylor, I missed you. Sorry, buddy. I hope you're doing well. Thank you to everybody for joining. This has been the Savage Hour. Go check out the Kettle Grip. And Andy Thomas, thanks for being on. Look forward to having you on again soon.